I never imagined that at 34, I would still be single, living alone in my New York apartment, yearning for something I couldn't quite define. Success had come early. I had a stable career, a comfortable home, and a life that many would envy. But deep down, there was an emptiness, a void that no achievement could fill. David came into my life a year ago. He was only 20 years old. He was a young African man with a serene strength that set him apart. He worked as my servant, handling daily chores. Always polite, always attentive, but never crossing boundaries. Unlike others, he listened when I spoke. His deep brown eyes held an unspoken understanding that initially unsettled me. I barely noticed him beyond his duties. He moved through my home with silent efficiency, never intrusive, never asking for more than required. But something shifted one night. I was sitting in the living room, exhausted from work, when David entered with a cup of tea and placed it on the table. His fingers brushed mine, just a fleeting touch, but it sent an unfamiliar warmth through me. I quickly pulled my hand away, dismissing the moment as accidental, but I began to notice him more. The way he moved, not just as a servant, but as a man. His presence was calming, his gestures thoughtful. He never spoke unless spoken to, but when he did, his voice was deep and reassuring, carrying a quiet confidence that belied his youth. One night, a storm battered the city. The lights flickered until they went out completely. I fumbled through the dark, searching for my phone, only to realize its battery was dead. Frustrated, I made my way to the kitchen, and there was David standing by the counter, lighting a candle. The soft glow illuminated his face, casting shadows that accentuated his strong features. "You should sit," he said calmly. "I'll make you something warm." I hesitated but obeyed, watching him move through the kitchen with ease. The rain pounded against the windows. The wind howled outside, but inside there was a strange sense of comfort. "Do you ever feel lonely?" I asked, surprised by my own question. David paused before turning to me. "Loneliness is a choice," he said simply. "Sometimes we keep ourselves alone even when we don't have to." His words lingered in my mind long after the power returned. That night, I couldn't sleep. I found myself thinking about him, his quiet wisdom, the warmth of his presence. This new awareness unsettled me. He was younger, my servant. What was I thinking? Days passed, but the tension between us grew, unspoken but undeniable. Every glance, every accidental touch seemed to carry more weight. I found myself drawn to the kitchen more often, lingering longer than necessary just to be near him. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found him washing dishes. The sight was ordinary, but something about it took my breath away. He turned, his eyes meeting mine, and for a brief moment, neither of us looked away. "Is there something you need, ma'am?" he asked, stepping closer, his expression unreadable. My throat went dry. The air between us felt charged, as if something unspoken demanded to be acknowledged. My pulse quickened, my heart pounding against my ribs. I could have left. I should have left. But I stayed. The following days felt different. I became more aware of David's presence, the way his eyes lingered on me when he thought I wasn't looking. There was something between us, something neither of us dared to name, but it hung in the air like an invisible thread drawing us closer. One night, I found myself in the kitchen again, watching him prepare dinner. It had become a routine. Me, sitting silently at the counter while he moved with quiet efficiency, never questioning why I was there. But that night, the silence felt heavier. "You always look at me like that," he said without turning, "like you're trying to figure something out." I blinked, caught off guard. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words didn't come, because he was right. I had been trying to make sense of what was happening inside me, the way my heart raced when he was near. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, my mind tangled with questions I didn't want to answer. When had I started feeling this way? When had David stopped being just a servant and become something more? The next morning, I avoided him, convincing myself distance would clear my mind. But by evening, I found myself seeking him out again, unable to ignore the pull between us. I found him in the study, organizing the bookshelves. He looked up as I entered. "Are you okay?" he asked. I hesitated before stepping closer. "I don't know," I admitted. He set the book down, waiting. "I've been thinking," I continued, my voice barely a whisper. His jaw tightened slightly. "And what have you decided?" He took a step forward. "Do you want me to leave?" The question sent a pang through my chest. "No," I whispered. His gaze searched mine, waiting. I closed my eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and made my choice. I stepped toward him, my fingers brushing his arm before I moved closer. The outside world ceased to exist as I let myself fall into the warmth of his touch, into something I could no longer deny. Days passed, and the boundaries between us continued to blur. What began as lingering glances turned into whispered conversations, subtle touches, stolen moments neither of us could resist. It was dangerous, intoxicating, and impossible to ignore. One night, as I sat on the couch with a book in my hands, David entered the room. He hesitated before sitting across from me. "You've been different lately," he said after a moment. I looked up, tempted to deny it, but I couldn't. "Yes," I admitted. He leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "And I think you know why." I swallowed, my fingers tightening around the book. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Then, let's stop pretending." The air between us grew thick, the invisible pull drawing me closer to him. I had spent so long resisting, convincing myself this was wrong. But nothing about being with him felt wrong. It felt natural, inevitable, like something I had been waiting for without realizing it. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. David's expression softened. "Neither do I," he said. "But does it matter?" I shook my head slowly. "No, It doesn't. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything that had brought me here. The years I had spent alone, the walls I had built around myself, and the way David had managed to break through them without even trying. He had become more than just a presence in my home. He had become a part of me. But love is never simple. One afternoon, as we sat together in the kitchen, the sound of the front door opening startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart pounded. I quickly pulled away from David, instinctively putting distance between us. A familiar voice called out. It was my friend Lisa. David straightened, his expression unreadable. When Lisa entered the room, her eyes darted between us. A knowing look crossed her face. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything," she said lightly, though her tone suggested otherwise. I forced a smile. "Of course not." Lisa studied me for a moment before turning her attention to David. "I didn't know you had so much company," she said. David met her gaze without flinching. "I work here." The way his jaw tightened, the sudden distance in his demeanor. She knew. "Does she know?" David asked after a long silence. I nodded slowly. "She suspects." David exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "And what happens when everyone else suspects too?" The question hung in the air, heavy and inevitable. We had been living in our own world, pretending nothing else mattered. But reality was knocking. I took his hand and squeezed it tightly. "I don't care," I whispered. He searched my eyes, looking for any sign of doubt. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "Yes, because for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid."